Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I am Sam Eagle, and these are some important safety instructions for you.
Sam.
Well, you can relax now. Everything's under control, and we'll be on our way to the Endor moon without any further delay.
To your right, if you saw this summer's blockbuster film Pearl Harbor starring Ben Affleck and Josh Hartnett, you probably recognize these airplanes.
Yo, Kermit, my main frog.
What is it, Floyd?
We're gonna need a couple of more seconds to get this gig swinging.
What?
Every man's a king and every king's a clown. Once again, it's topsy-turvy day.
Hello, hi there. Welcome to my park. How you doing? Hello.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the Disney MGM Studios proudly presents Sorcery in the Sky. Lights. Camera. Action.
WDW Radio, your information station.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to the WDW Radio Show, your Walt Disney World information station. I am your host, Lou Mangello, and this is show number 737, and together, as we have been since 2005, we're going to celebrate the magic and the people of the Disney parks, movies, Marvel, Star Wars, and more here on the podcast, my weekly live video every Wednesday night, events, blog, and more. Please be sure to join the community at wdwradio.com/clubhouse, subscribe to the podcast, tell a friend, and find everything at wdwradio.com. So I invite you to please join me this week as I sit down with cast member Rob Lott as he shares his journey, stories, and lessons from onstage, backstage, and even as a friend of some of your favorite characters. From the Hoop-Dee-Doo to Dapper Dans to Tokyo Disney Sea, we discuss not just his career, but the hows and whys of creating Disney magic. Then stay tuned for a Disney Trivia Question of the Week, where you can enter to win a Disney prize package from Disneyland Paris, and more updates at the end of the show. And if you like what you hear, please share the show and tell a friend. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the WDW Radio Show. It takes people to make the dream a reality. And for a company that is rooted in storytelling, it's the people who are the storytellers, both on stage and off. And there is an art and artistry to sharing the gift of bringing laughter and joy to countless people of multiple generations from around the world that come to visit the Disney parks. And one of those talented performers and artists is my next guest, Rob Lott. You may not know him by name yet, but I know you know many of his friends. So I want to welcome actor, director, reader, writer, thinker, podcaster, and, according to him, a speaker-upper, Mr. Rob Lott. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Lou. I'm so happy to be here. We'll get to this in a little bit, but I remember standing on stage and seeing you out in the house, and I had an opportunity to make my plea from the stage to be on the show, and I took my shot, and so here we are.
Here we are. And so to be clear, the stage you are talking about is the stage of
the Hoop-Dee-Doo Review.
Yeah. So we'll get to that. It was for me, I'll tell you, man, that was like such a fun, cool, very unexpected, right? We've sort of met before, but we've never actually spoken. So, this is going to be a fun, interesting, I think, conversation. So let's start with you, right? I'm a big fan of sort of the superhero origin story. So tell me about, the little kid from Ohio that just dreamt, stars in his eyes, that dreamt of being in show business.
Yeah, so I absolutely, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it was. I grew up in a town. It's a city now, but at the time it was a small town of Greene, Ohio. And I've long said, I grew up in Greene, Ohio. I went to Greene High School, where our colors are orange and black. And it was just that kind of a city, that kind of a small town. There was like, we don't need to explain ourselves. This is just who we are. This is what we do. And I was about, I want to say I was about like 4 or 5 generations Ohio. And, it's just one of those things in the Midwest. You are born, you are raised, you grow up, you live and you work and you die there in that same place. Nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, but it's just, it's a very common thing to just stay where you are, live your life there. And I knew that I wanted to do other things. I've known from I'm a very rare breed of people that has always known what he wanted to do. And that is that I wanted to be in show business in some way, shape, or form. And I didn't care if it was on stage, backstage. I just wanted to be around it. I wanted to be around those people. I wanted to be around what was happening on the stage. I was drawn to it. I was drawn to stage doors. I was drawn to theater lobbies. I was drawn to I just want to be there. I just want to be around it. And there wasn't, I grew up in a community that certainly valued the arts. And at the same time, there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity to make that my living. And so when the time came and I graduated from high school, I was all set and ready to go to Ohio State, and I was going to play in the Ohio State University marching band. And that was the plan. That was the goal. I was going to study music and find my way that way. But it was that summer right after my high school year, my senior year of high school, that a buddy of mine said, "Hey, they're having auditions down in Orlando for some gigs down there to work at Walt Disney World. Rob, I know you like that. You should go down and audition." And so I thought to myself, okay, I'm not going to put all my eggs in this basket. I have a plan here in Ohio, but you know what? I'll go and I'll audition, and we'll see what happens. If it's a no, then it's a no, and I'll have my other thing to do. If it's a yes, great. So I went to audition at Dr. Phillips High School, and they were looking for puppeteers, and I just happened to be right place, right time with the right talent. And I auditioned, and they offered me the job right there in the room. And they said, "So when can you start?" And I said, "I don't live here." And they said, "Okay, so when can you be here? When can you be living here?" I said, "Can you give me a month?" So the audition was in September, and I started. My first day was on October 16 of the year 2000. I was hired for a show called Legend of the Lion King, where, I see the look on your face. You remember it, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners remember it. It's where Mickey's PhilharMagic is now. And we told the entire story of the Lion King every day, 32 times a day in an 18-minute show. We did the entirety of it over and over and over again. And so, yeah, I was at the time when I first started, I played the roles. I started in Mufasa and then went into Scar. I was what was called all the big mouth puppets. So Mufasa into Scar into adult Simba. And and then I learned some other roles there as well, where I got to learn Cub Simba and then get to do some other fun things with that. And I started out as a puppeteer at Walt Disney World.
So wait, I got to stop you there, right? Because every kid who might be listening is like, "Mom, that's what I want to be a puppeteer too." So are you trained as a puppeteer, or like did you take your Toys R Us Kermit the Frog puppet and just sit in front of the mirror all day? I'm not saying I did that as a kid, but maybe a couple times, thinking this is this is my shot. I'm going to have a career as a puppeteer.
No, that's the one. Basically, I grew up, and I don't know if it was chicken or the egg. I don't know what has drawn me to puppetry. I've always been a fan of good puppetry. Of course, Muppets, of course, Sesame Street. I watched Sesame Street long past when I should have stopped watching Sesame Street, and I think it was a couple of things. I enjoyed the writing of the sketches that they would do, like the kind of the takeoffs and the things making fun of just pop culture at the time, but then making it educational. I enjoyed that, but I also enjoyed the puppetry aspect of it. There's a ventriloquist named Ron Lucas. He had a special that was the #1 special for the entire decade on the Disney Channel. It was the #1 special for the entire decade of the 1980s. on the Disney Channel, and I watched his special was on after school every day, all the time, and I would come home and I would just watch it over and over and over again. And again, just also a great character creator, great ventriloquist, but also a great puppeteer. And so I watched a lot of that, and I've always been good at kind of watching things and being able to emulate it, being able to mimic it, being able to copy it and go, okay, I see what they're doing. And I know, I think I can do that myself. And so that was something, it was exactly, I didn't have any kind of special training other than being able to watch and see it and then being able to copy it and emulate it. But then you get to Walt Disney World and there's a whole team of specialists, literally what are called puppet specialists that teach you all of the shows and teach you all the puppetry for all of the shows. And so shout out to James Silson, Scott Silson, James Domoyer. These guys got me started and gave me a place to be as a puppeteer there at Walt Disney World. And so, that was where I started.
Well, and I like this story too. And, part of what I do from a business side of things is I love this idea. And I know that you were young, but there was risk involved, right? Because you were enrolled, like you had sort of your, quote unquote, your plan, your roadmap. I was going to go to school. I was going to go do this thing. You now have to say, Mom, Dad, I'm going to put college on hold. I'm going to go play with puppets in Disney World. But I love this because it's sort of the what if, right? Because it's the what if it works as opposed to, having the regret years later. What if I would have tried? I wonder what happened if I would have taken that opportunity. So at a young age, it is a relatively large risk to take in pursuit of this thing that you knew you wanted to do.
Yeah, I am so blessed and so thankful for the family that I was born into, the parents that raised me. My sister she's an author, she's a writer, she's published and has written some New York Times bestselling books, and she is great with that. But she started actually as a second grade teacher. That's what she wanted to be from a very early young age. And so in having conversations with my older sister, my mom would say, well, there's really only one way that you get to be a teacher. If that's what you want to do, then you need to go to school and study elementary education and then do your student teaching and you get your teaching certificate. And then you are allowed to teach second grade. That's the path. That's the only way that it's going to happen for you. Rob, you want to work in show business. There's no one way to do it. And even if you were to go to school for it, even if you were to get your degree in theater or music, there's no guarantee that you get to make a living right away at that. And so they recognized that. And in doing so, they said, well, here's this opportunity right in front of you. College is always going to be there. It's always going to be available. But here's an opportunity for you to do what you love, do what you're passionate about, do this thing where your passion lies. And why wouldn't we support that? So shout out to the parents. I know I'm doing a lot of shout outs here on your show. Shout out to the parents who are supporting and encouraging. There's a verse, a Bible verse that my parents had, and it was this idea of raise up a child in the way that they should go. And something that occurred to them and was shared with them is going, very often parents want to raise up a child in the way that the parent thinks the child should go. Right. But really, if you look at it, if you look at the text, it's raise up a child in the way that they should go. Pay attention to their passions, the things they're naturally interested in, the ways that they want to spend their time. Pay attention to those things and encourage that, push them down that path. And that's what happened. And so that's why I was able to, right out of high school, pack up a car. My mom drove down with me. She flew back, left the car with me here in Orlando, and I got started working at Walt Disney World.
I love that, man, because it's not just the support, but the trust in you and that you knew what you wanted, you knew what you wanted to do. And I tell people all the time, sometimes, the support doesn't necessarily come from our parents or our siblings or even close friends, but it's finding those people that believe in what you do. As you started to tell the story about your sister, I'm like, he's going to say, your sister is a neurosurgeon and she won a Nobel Peace Prize on the side. So you need to do that too. But I love the fact that they saw that, they saw that vision, and then probably got a couple of free Hoop-Dee-Doo tickets as a thank you.
Well, I will say, yes, it is true. My family, my parents especially, have not bought a ticket to Walt Disney World in probably since 1999.
And you saved them tuition too, which is nice.
That's right.
As having 2 kids in college now, I understand what a blessing and benefit that is. All right, so you're in Legend of the Lion King in Fantasyland. You're being taught by the best of the best of the best in a place that obviously I'm assuming you had either been to or wanted to visit or loved sort of the Disney parks as a kid.
Yeah, so much so. So my mom, mentioned her before. My mom was in the 1980s. She was a world-class, top 10 in the country Tupperware sales lady. Tupperware lady. And so, as you might recall, the headquarters of Tupperware are in Kissimmee, Florida. And so it was pretty standard, pretty regular that they would bring everybody to Kissimmee, Florida from the region and bring everybody down on this side of the country. They would bring everybody here, and Orlando would be bombarded with minivans from all around the country, Tupperware lady minivans filled with their kids and their families. And so they would do 2 or 3 days of training of here's all the new products for Tupperware. And then we would treat the rest of the week as vacation. And so we would go and visit the parks. At the time, my parents would buy the 7-day, the park hoppers that never expire. So we would use 2 or 3 of those days a year, and then come back the next year and use 2 or 3 more days, and then come back the next year and just keep adding to as needed. And so, yeah, I have very vivid memories of growing up visiting Walt Disney World, not necessarily every summer, but pretty much every summer, as I was probably until I was, I want to say probably 7, 8, or 9 years old. And yeah, and my mom has a story of me sitting on Main Street, USA. I don't necessarily remember this, but sitting on Main Street, USA, watching the parade go by. And I looked up at her and I said, I want to do that. And she said, well, sure. Okay. Yeah. So
I'm still trying to get
I get a little choked up every time I tell that story.
Yeah. As you're telling the story, I'm sort of picturing in my mind's eye the parking lot of the convention center just filled with Ford Aerostars and moms coming out spraying stiff stuff in their hair, getting ready to go into the convention centers, dragging their kids behind. All right. So you're a performer at Legend of the Lion King. Where
started at Legend of the Lion King.
What does that take you next?
Then there were other shows also that I learned as a puppeteer. There's a show called Pocahontas and Her Forest Friends at right there at Animal Kingdom. It was across from where Festival of the Lion King used to be there in Camp Minnie Mickey. Mm-hmm. And so I played Grandmother Willow and Sprig for that. And then also learned Voyage of the Little Mermaid. I learned Sebastian for that one. And I also ended up learning Ursula as well. And then there was also a show called Bear in the Big Blue House live on stage there at Disney.
Now I'm going to cry.
Disney MGM Studios.
I'm going to be the one who's, my kids, we spend a lot of time on the floor of Playhouse Disney live on stage and Bear in the Big Blue House. And
yeah, so I was Pip and Pop to start with, the little purple otters. It was one puppeteer that performed both of those characters at the same time, it was super fun, but also very challenging because you just had to isolate your right hand from your left hand and have them have these completely different personalities and different, they both would have one. There was a thing called the otter rap. And one guy did the majority of the rap and the other guy was kind of the hype man behind doing it. So they would both say some things together, but they wouldn't say the same thing at the same time. And it was a very, when you mastered the otter rap, it was like, okay, you've done it. You are now a bona fide puppeteer at Walt Disney World. So that, and then, that became Playhouse Disney live on stage. Now, okay, so here's what's going on behind the scenes then, while all of that is happening, is that I'm getting together with a couple of guys just on our own, just for fun. And we are singing barbershop harmony and doo-wop and rockapella type stuff, just getting together at each other's houses. And somebody has a pitch pipe and we'll just start singing these tunes and bringing stuff from our high school music days and all that stuff. So we're doing that. And lo and behold, there was an audition for Hong Kong Disneyland was about to open. And they were looking for a cast of Dapper Dans to go there. And so we went. Now, we weren't very good. Okay, let me be very clear. We were not very good. We went and we auditioned. And we got about a song and a half in, and the casting director waved his hand, and I thought for sure it was, thank you guys, that's all we need, off you go. But instead he goes, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. The group that's in Tokyo right now, I'm going to send them to be the Dapper Dans in Hong Kong. I'm going to send you guys to Tokyo. It's a 13-month contract. All of you need to say yes. I'll give you the month. I'll give you the weekend to think about it, but the contract starts in about a month.
Wow. And
so we all looked at each other wide-eyed, and so I spent a year then working at Tokyo Disney Sea with the Dockside Porters, which is a barbershop quartet there. So these are kind of the big headline chapters.
Yeah, I mean, we could spend an entire day just talking about Disney Sea, but again, these opportunities that present themselves that you have to sort of almost immediately make this snap decision. You know, it's different going from Ohio to Orlando. It's a little bit more accessible. Now, all of a sudden, you need to pick up your life, what you can fit into your carry-on bag, and go across the world to a country I'm assuming you've probably never visited before, just in a language that you're probably not all that familiar with.
All of that is true.
Yeah, so talk to me about that experience, what getting to Tokyo was like, and even you know, culturally, the Japanese culture, the Japanese Disney guests, it's sort of very different than it is here in America. Talk to me a little bit about your experience at the most beautiful Disney park on the planet, I think, which is Disney Sea.
Yeah, and I was not prepared. And listen, if for listeners that have visited Tokyo Disney Sea and Tokyo Disneyland, you get this, and I've never heard anybody dispute this. But for those of you who have not heard, who have not visited, all of the hype that you hear about these parks and how beautiful and how over the top and how just it is, everything is just extra all the time, everywhere all the time. And so I don't think that we can overstate how beautiful these parks are and how stunning and how exciting they are. But getting there, it was, we were allowed 2 big giant bags. And so you pack up your life and you head there. This was a little bit, cell phone, everybody having a cell phone was not quite yet a thing. So, everybody's kind of still communicating through email, and Skype was not yet necessarily a thing. So we were kind of communicating. Once we got there, if we wanted to call home, we had those, phone cards you bought minutes on, stuff like that. And but once we got there, the Disney parks there and the guests who visit there are incredibly kind, incredibly they are compliant of, and when I say that, what I mean is, like, if you ask them from stage, if you ask an audience to do something, they're like, yep, we're doing it. Whereas in the United States, you gotta push a little bit more. You gotta build a little bit more trust. You have to, like, hey, everybody, what do you think about doing this? And you can't right away say, hey, everybody, follow me. We're learning this choreography. This is what we're going to do as a crowd. But over there, they are in it. They love it. They just want to,
very respectful. Like, it's
incredibly, Yeah. So we ended up, because it is owned by it's owned by the Oriental Land Company, and they license the IP of Disney. This is all public information. So as I was hired as a contractor, as a foreign performer contractor there, and they built a big giant apartment building for all of us foreign performers who came. So it's about a 300-room apartment building, and we would, it was E-Village, and we would come and go from E-Village on a regular basis every morning. They would give us a train ticket, and we would go to the train station, which was a little bit of, it's about a quarter-mile walk away from the apartments. We'd hop on the train. The train would take us to the parks, and we would go in through the employee entrance. But because we were contractors and not necessarily employees of Tokyo Disney Sea, we did have to purchase annual passes. But that was a really easy decision to do because, again, when else are we going to be there? And so we bought annual passes. And so pretty much every day, every night, after work, we would go around the corner. Sorry about that. we would go around the corner and go into the park and experience the park every night, and go to the different restaurants and go and do the different attractions and things. And it was fantastic. It was a great life for 13 months that I was there. It was fantastic.
I'm sure there's moments that you probably, whether you were performing for guests or acting as a guest, there were pinch me moments. Like, I cannot believe I'm getting paid to be here.
Yeah.
And I get this question all the time, and I think we sort of know the answer. But from a performer perspective, you're obviously singing songs in English. Talk to me about the challenges or the opportunities that the cultural and the language differences present.
So we were working in an area called the American Waterfront. So Tokyo Disney Sea is about all of the different ports of, the different ports all around the world. And so we were working in the American Waterfront area. And so our show director, when we got there, goes, gentlemen, would it be okay if you only spoke English? And we said, yes, that would be fine. That will be okay. Now, we did have a few songs, and we certainly knew some phrases, important key phrases in Japanese. And we did have some songs that we sung in Japanese. But for the most part, our show was in English. And it was encouraged and expected that we speak English. And that was actually, as you went around as foreigners in this country, again, respectful and just very welcoming. It's a very hospitable culture. And so we would sit down at restaurants, and it would be a very similar thing of our server would come up and say, would it be okay if I practiced English with all of you? Yes, that would be just fine. Yes, we would welcome it. And so there were certainly some things. Now, there's also an element of culturally do what is best for everyone. And also culturally, let's do what we've always done, because doing what we've always done has been working. And so we are going to always do the things the way that we've always done them. And there was one day that we decided, and our director told us, all right, guys, you have the run of the waterfront. You get to go wherever you want, be wherever you want. You run this place, character-wise, story-wise. Everyone loves you, and you have friends in all of the different storefronts. You've got connections everywhere. So wherever you go, whatever you do, you are welcome, and you can go around and do whatever you want. It's, within the story of what we wanted to do was sing together. That was always what we wanted to do. So that was the story. But one day we decided to come out a different door than we had ever come out. And Lou, I tell you, there was no less than 3 months of meetings to ask us, why did you come out that other door? And we kept saying, after about the third meeting, where they would come into our dressing room and they would say, we just need to get to the bottom of this. Why did you go out that other door? And we would say, we did it just that one time, and we'll never do it again. Okay. And a week later, they come in, we must know, why did you come out that other door? And so there were certain things that we had to remember. Okay, we are visitors here, and we need to do things the way that they expect us to do it. I just spent some time out of the country recently, and a friend of ours that was working on the project also, they said, it's not my culture. I don't have to understand it.
All right.
I just need to comply. I just need to follow along. I just need to do as they tell me to do. And so that, being there is amazing. And like I say, they are incredibly hospitable to people from all around the world visiting. And they know that Tokyo is a destination. And it's a worldwide destination, and they want to be that, and they are welcoming that. And at the same time, there are some things where it's like, while you're here, please do as we do.
Respect has to go both ways, right? The respect,
exactly.
that you expect, you have to give to others, and the way things are too. So, but I mean, in terms of, it's also a culture of service. Like I always tell people, if you think that the service at Disney parks domestically is incredible and the best anywhere, Tokyo, Disneyland, and Disney Sea, they sort of turn it up to 11.
Absolutely.
11.5. Right. All right. So the end of your 13 months, what happens, and how do you end up back in the States?
Yeah. So I come back to Orlando, and so the guy who had initially hired me, he and I became friends, who hired me back in October of 2000. we became friends. We're hanging out a lot. And he calls me up and he goes, "Hey, Rob, so would you be interested? You were a puppeteer with us for almost 5 years. Would you be interested in taking all of that and teaching it to new performers?" Basically, as I mentioned before, the puppet specialists that would teach us. So we have an opening for somebody to do that as their main gig. Would you want to do that? And I was like, "Oh man, sure. Yeah, that sounds great." So I was then given the opportunity to become a puppet specialist as part of the entertainment show quality team. So this is something that your listeners might find interesting. You might find interesting. There's a team at the time. We do things a little bit differently now, but at the time, this was 2006, 2007 when I started. There's a team of about 100 people who keep an eye on all of the parades and shows. And our job at the time, was to maintain the quality to the expectation of our guests and to the expectation of our creative team. And so we knew, so if you can kind of spot them, where if you are watching a parade, or especially like, some of the shorter parades at Magic Kingdom, some of the cavalcades and things, you can kind of spot them where they're following along the parade route, just a little bit on the outskirts of where the crowd is. And they have a notebook or they have their phone out and they're following along. And what they're doing is they're going to go back after the parade or after the show, and they're going to talk to the cast and they're going to say, "Hey, just as a reminder, remember these kicks are 45 degrees, not 50 degrees and not 90 degrees. So that's what these kicks are. And remember that we all step off on our left foot for this on count 7 of this part of the show." And they're keeping an eye on those things to make sure, because what happens is shows drift. And especially if you're doing the same show day in and day out over and over and over again, it drifts, where we find as performers, we find new and more efficient ways of doing things. And I've been kind of saying for years, efficiency is not necessarily, even though it's part of our 5 keys, efficiency is not necessarily a friend to entertainment and show business. We do take the path of most resistance. That's where you get stories. We do take the route that is more pretty.
Which is why efficiency is the final key, right? It's the last sort of key in the hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So along those lines, it is something that we're not necessarily, but performers though, we have a way of going, "Oh, it's easier if I do it this way. It's easier if I round the corner this way." Or, "Oh, you know what? This sounds a little, if I say the line this way, it gets a different response. I'm going to try it that way." Or if I sing it this way, it's going to create a different chord. And so there are people whose job it is to say, no, I totally get it, but here's what we're doing. I get that you want to have that variety. I get that, but at the same time, let's come on back and let's do it the way that we have written and expected you to do it, because that is what our guests are expecting.
Right. Respect for the process. Again, same thing here.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was brought on to be one of those people for the puppetry of Walt Disney World. And I started at a show called Finding Nemo, the musical, and was teaching all of the new performers there how to manipulate Marlin and Dory and Nemo and Crush and everybody, Squirt, and all of those characters, Bruce, that are involved in telling the story of Finding Nemo there at Disney's Animal Kingdom Theater in the Wild. And so I started doing that. And now I was doing that. And while I was teaching that, I ended up just kind of learning the show, as you're prone to do. And so what was fun is that I would, whenever somebody was missing from rehearsal, it was very easy for me to be like, I'll just stand in their place, say their lines, and sing their lyrics and do their puppetry, and rehearsal can continue even though we're missing this one individual. And I would kind of jump in for all of those different roles. And after a couple months of this, the show director pulled me aside and said, "Rob, is this something that you want to do? Do you want to be a performer?" I said, "Well, I mean, yeah, it's in me. Sure, I would love to do that." And so they said, "Well, why don't you come to some auditions and let's see what we can figure out." And so I went to an audition, didn't learn Finding Nemo, but Finding Nemo adjacent is a show called Turtle Talk with Crush there at Epcot. And I ended up getting to learn that and be good friends with Crush there at Epcot, and I was doing that. And also during that time, I got a call back and was able to. I auditioned, got a call back, and was able to learn the Hoop-Dee-Doo Review as the role of 6-Bit Slocum. And but I was what's called an out-of-unit sub. And so what that means is basically like they have to go through everybody who is a statist performer before they call me in, because I was somebody working in a different job, a different status, different thing altogether. So to just keep the books straight and easy and understandable, they just had to go through and make sure that they called everybody else first before they called me in. So I rarely got to do these shows. But when I did get to do those shows, I just bubbled over with excitement and joy and happiness. And I was like, oh, I love this. I love this too. I love the behind the scenes, but I also love this part of getting responses from audiences and hearing that applause and hearing that laughter. And if anybody has ever had the opportunity of standing on a stage, and when you say something and the audience laughs, it is immediately and irreversibly addictive. And you will continue chasing that laugh, chasing that applause for the rest of your life.
Well, that's what I want to talk to you about. Starting off with Turtle Talk with Crush, because you went from, you were on stage, but you were off stage, right? You were hidden as the puppeteer and as the voice, and then you get a taste of that as a performer on stage in Tokyo Disney Sea. Now with Turtle Talk, it's sort of this weird mix up of the two, right? Because you're interacting with guests and kids, which is a whole different dynamic. I'm assuming you have, some scripted lines to go off of, but there's a lot of improvisation that takes place in here. And I also think that you are gifted with the resources and responsibility and opportunity to create memorable and emotional moments for these kids and their family. I'm going to cry. I remember going with my son and watching his brains fall out of his head because Crush was talking only to him. You were sort of having this one-on-one conversation that he remembers and we remember. Talk to me a little bit about that dynamic and what sort of goes into that role as opposed to the ones that you had before.
You're absolutely right. And my favorite experience with Turtle Talk, I happened to be around when this show happened, and it was that there was on New Year's Eve, I was working on New Year's Eve, and there was a show scheduled for 11:50 p.m. on New Year's Eve. And do you think how many people are clamoring to be over in the Land Pavilion and sorry, not the Land Pavilion, the seas with Nemo? How many people are clamoring to be over in that area as opposed to where the main event is about to happen in 10 minutes? And I was just like, what? Why is this on the schedule? Why is this happening? And so again, I just happened to be present. And in walks this just one lone family. And they sit on the front bench, and they're sitting there. And I could tell it was like, listen, we tried to make it to midnight. We're not going to be able to do it, but okay, we can do one more thing before we go. What's that one more thing?
We found a bench. We found an empty bench and air conditioning.
Yeah. And what was great is Crush came out and you're absolutely right. There's some scripted elements. There's some stuff that Crush will typically always do. But Crush came out and just chatted with this family for about 10, 15 minutes. Just chatted and asked questions. Tell me about the human world. I'll tell you about the turtle world. Let's just have a conversation and strip away all the show elements. And it was exactly that of when you say, your son, his mind was blown of Crush is talking only to me. How great. I know that it does not, it doesn't check the box of, we need to make sure that enough guests are cycling through this attraction on a regular basis in order to justify it being there, in order to justify the cost of all of that stuff. I know that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do these one-off one family experiences, but man, when it happens, it's my most favorite thing of just getting to spend that time individually. And just I believe that those are the moments that are core. We're setting the table for core memories to be made. And so, yeah, those are the times that stand out. And I remember that night. And just getting to talk to that individual family, or rather, I remember being present while Crush was talking to that individual family, and it was great.
But that's what it's about, right? Because that is, you can't put you can't put an ROI on that moment for that family, because that is going to be the memory that they have and that they share and that they tell others. This is the moment that they become evangelists for this park because of that special time. It's not about the rides. It's not about what they ate. It's not about the character. It's that moment that they had that they're going to tell their friends, their kids are going to have, their kids are going to tell their kids. And you're right. You can't sort of put a price on what that means. My kids have had those moments. They still talk, my daughter's 19, my son's almost 18. They still talk about memories and special moments that they had in the parks with characters when they were 6 and 7 years old. So that's the kind of moment that Crush was able to make for that family. Yeah. And that happens every day, right? It happens every day. Yeah. Sometimes on smaller scales.
Yeah. Well, and we used to have, as you may recall, the 7 service guidelines. And one of those was to thank each and every guest. Mm-hmm. Now, there's tens of thousands of guests coming through every day. Not every cast member can thank each and every guest, but if each of us is thanking each and every guest that's in front of us, as the day finishes, every guest will have felt welcomed. They will have felt appreciated for their presence there that day, and probably multiple times. And I think if all cast members are looking for those opportunities, as the majority of us are, if we're looking for those individual opportunities to go, what can I do? I can't do something special for everyone, but I can probably do something special for you. And if everybody is looking for those opportunities, that's the secret sauce, I believe, that makes everybody walk away going, okay, yeah. The parks were great. Parades were great. The rides were great. But let me tell you about this one moment that happened. It was a random Tuesday at 1:00 in the afternoon. And we had this interaction. And we had this interaction with this cast member. And I think that is the secret sauce that makes people, again, I talk about chasing the laugh, chasing the applause for the rest of my life. I think people come back to the parks because they are chasing that feeling again.
Yeah. And I think too, these are lessons and inspiration that it's not just at Disney. Like, other businesses can take these things and apply it to what they do. I believe that every business is in the relationship business, right? Which is what Disney is in. Yes. And the ability to care at scale about every single guest in the way that is, most reasonably possible, that these are the kind of things that happen as a result. So, all right. So you are friends with Crush, but you are also given an opportunity, dare I say a responsibility, because the hoop-de-doo is no joke. The hoop-de-doo is, if you know and love the hoop-de-doo, you love the hoop-de-doo. And it is the reason why it is still the longest running stage show in America, and you pack the house every night. Talk to me about getting the role of Six Bits, who I think, and I'm not just saying it because you're here, but having seen the show multiple times, Six Bits is a special character because he has to do everything that the other part of the ensemble cast does, but there's something special about his role because of the comedic element that he brings that I think really helps sort of bind the cast together.
100%. So I'll tell the story of how I got into it. I went to an audition, and again, like I said, got a call back and was invited then to learn the show. And again, because I have people will often say, Rob, how can I do what you do? And I was, well, I'll tell you what I did, but it's a very windy path. And so you can follow it as best as possible, but everybody kind of needs to find their own way. And again, because I was able to step into those roles at Finding Nemo in the rehearsal room, the pressure was off and I wasn't nervous. I wasn't trying to have a job or keep a job or get a job. I was just standing in for these roles and I wasn't nervous about it. And so I was able to have fun with it and bring that personality. And so they kind of saw that from the other side of the table, the creative team, show directors, they saw that from the other side of the table and they said, okay, there's something here that might work in other places on property. And so I went to my leadership at the time and I said, hey, listen, so I'm an emergency sub for the WDW Review, but what if we flipped it? What if I was an emergency sub as a puppet specialist and I devoted more time to performing? And they said, well, that sounds like a win-win. We'll still have access to you when we need you, but you'll be able to follow this dream and do this fun thing that you want to do. And so that's what happened. And I went full time into the WDW Review in October of 2013. And so we did. We always, the WDW Review cannot go down as a show. You know, different shows will go down for different reasons, be it weather or technical issues or something like that. But the WDW Review just cannot be canceled. It cannot go down. And so we will always put on a show. We will always do something. That is part of the DNA of that venue, the DNA of that cast and that show of just going, we will make something happen. And there was one day when we did not have a Flora Long performer. Flora is, for anybody who's seen the show, Flora wears the yellow dress. She is partnered with Jim Handy, the host of the show. And so we did not have a Flora Long. And so it was like, oh, you know what? It's okay. We'll figure it out. We will do, we'll still be able to do the show, but we'll just, everybody will kind of assume her role. And some of the different ladies will pick up some of those lines. Some of the different men will pick up some of those responsibilities and duties that Flora has. And so we'll be able to get it done and still do it. So we got into it and we started doing the show. And what I realized was Flora Long is the voice of reason at the WDW Review. She is the one behind the scenes, quietly, just Jim is the host. Dolly Drew is also a kind of a host. They're similar in their archetypes. But Jim is the singer host and Dolly is the comedic side alongside Six Bits. And then we have their dancer couple of Johnny Ringo and Claire DeLune. And then there's Flora Long that is quietly, like I said, quiet. We didn't realize until she was gone that there was nobody to keep Six Bits in line. And so I was just going around doing things and I realized, I need to find my own way to stop myself because typically Flora is the one to go, all right, Six Bits, come on back, stand here, do as you're told, say your lines, And so, yes, all of that to say, we're incredibly reliant on each other as a cast. It is, I have a theory. The show opened in 1974, and there was a very popular television show on at the same time called The Carol Burnett Show. Mm-hmm. And I believe very much that there was because of that style of performing, ensemble cast performing, and Carol Burnett is well on record of saying, my job is to make everybody else look great. And yes, it's my name on the show, but I'm going to make sure that everybody else finds their way downstage center. It's going to be funnier if they say this punchline rather than me say this punchline. If it's going to be better if everybody else gets their chance. So I think early on there was an adoption of that mentality for the WDW Review of going, how can we shove everybody? We just continually keep pushing everybody else downstage center to shine. And if there's that continual ensemble cast relationship of going, no, this isn't me, this is you. And them going, no, it's not me, it's you. You're great in this. Okay, I'm going to take this really fast, but then I'm going to get out of the way and make sure that I'm clear for you to do what you need to do. And the ensemble cast is incredibly reliant on each other. The six of us that are on stage, as well as our two musicians and very much our technicians. We have 3 technicians on the show, 1 backstage, 1 running spotlight, and 1 running audio. And it is a group effort. It is a team effort to make that show run. The appearance of it's right on the edge of falling apart. It is always on the edge of just this show could crumble at any time. And typically that's 6-Bit's fault, that things are going to fall apart. But yeah, it's we're incredible. And I also say very much so that I get a lot of credit for the way that I'm able to make an audience laugh. But man, oh man, does the rest of the cast sure make me laugh backstage. They are so dang funny. And people don't necessarily see that side of them on stage. They look at 6-Bits, they look at Dolly as the comedy team for the Hoop-de-Doo Review. But what you may not realize is how reliant we are of the rest of the cast knowing comedy, understanding comedy, and knowing, okay, my job is to set up 6-Bits. My job is to set up and do it in such a way to get the optimal laugh. And so we're just we're a family. We love each other. We like each other. And it's an amazing experience stepping on stage and just knowing, Amy Poehler had a quote of she was, Saturday Night Live and, Parks and Rec, Amy Poehler. And she she said something of, when you find yourself lost on stage, look into your scene partner's eyes and you'll feel better. And what she was not saying is look into your scene partner's eyes and your scene partner will fix it for you. That's not what she was saying. What she was saying was look into your scene partner's eyes and you'll feel better. And by feeling better, you'll be calm. You'll be able to gather yourself up and go, okay, where am I? What's happening? What's going on? And all of us, anybody who's been on the stage for any amount of time at the Hoop-de-Doo Review has had that experience of going, okay, I'm lost. I'm just, where are we? What's happening? I've lost my place in the show. What's happening right now? And you look into your scene partner's eyes and I love these people so much. You look into your scene partner's eyes and they look back at you and it is every single time. It is a look of, you've got this and we're here.
And I've got you, right? I've got you. I'm there to, and that's when I said that the show was special. I meant it because, with an ensemble cast, sometimes it's not always like that. There is somebody who wants to sort of be the star of an ensemble cast, but the relationship and that dynamic and what we as guests I see as the inherent trust that you have with each other, no matter who's playing what role, because you might go one day and see somebody in a role, you might go the next day and it's somebody else, but you still get that sense of love and relationship and dynamic between each of you. And I think, for this show too, I've seen it multiple times over multiple years. And
me too.
Barring a slight change, because I have to imagine, again, it's the same thing. You have a script, I'm using air quotes, but you also have some freedom and flexibility to ad-lib and improvise. But one of the things I've always noticed is that you, for the most part, do the same show multiple times per night, every single day of the year. But it always seems and feels like it's the first time you're doing it. And it's the most important performance you've ever given. How do you sustain that level of enthusiasm and energy for something that, again, is, we understand it. It's not rote, but it's the same thing. So how do you sort of keep that enthusiasm level authentic, because you know that the audience can feel it?
There's two things for me. So you're absolutely right. The show it's a scripted show, and we have benchmarks of time because we do 3 shows a night. So there needs to be time to get this audience out and get the next audience in, and so we have to be mindful of those things. And so it's scripted, it's timed, it's planned, but at the same time, you are right. There are times, there are places. I always say, yes, you can leave the roadmap as long as you know your way back. And so along those lines, I had the opportunity to be with the show, be on stage for the 40th anniversary performance. And there were a couple of things that were amazing about that. But one of the great things was they brought back the original cast. They brought back the original cast, seated them right in the middle of the house, and we got to, in the middle of the show, during what is typically the birthdays and anniversaries, we got to go around and introduce the originators of these roles. And I remember when it got time for, this is a little bit of a sidebar, but when it came time, I was going to introduce Brad, who originated the role of Six Bits. And all I said was, let me talk for just a little bit about Brad. And there was a roar of applause from the audience. And the reason I'm getting emotional about this is because he didn't know it, but he was creating an opportunity for decades and for performers he was laying a groundwork to create this character that people love so very, very much. And that original cast, we were chatting with them afterwards, and we were saying, how does it feel to have a show running? This is important, and this is what stuck with me. We asked them, how does it feel to be the opening cast of a show that has run for 40 years? And they said, oh, well, we were never thinking about 40 years. We were thinking about this show and this audience. And if you are thinking about this show and this audience, it makes it really easy to keep it fresh. And for me, we bust through those back doors, we run up on stage, and we start in on that opening number. And just about every single show, I can look out into the house and I can see somebody with the look on their face of going, okay, hold on, wait a second, this is real. There are actually people singing and dancing in front of me live on stage. I've never actually experienced this. I've seen it on TV. I've seen it in movies. I've never actually experienced it, been in the room when a live show is happening 10 feet away from me. I've never experienced that. And you see their eyes are just big, taking it all in. Sometimes their jaw is dropped going, well, I don't know how to process all that is happening right now. So immediately, well, of course, now the show becomes for them, for me, of going, okay, I'm just going to keep checking in with them, of going, you've heard about how amazing it is, how amazing live entertainment is. You've heard about how amazing live entertainment is at Walt Disney World is. I don't want to let you down. All of those people who told you how great this is, I don't want to make liars out of them. I want you to have the experience that you were hoping to have, even if you didn't know what you were hoping for. I want to give you that experience. And we always say about the WDW review, it's not the best show at Walt Disney World. It's the most fun you ever had. And that is, that's an amazing mission statement. It's a great way for us to be able to just go, hey, listen, we're not trying to be the best show. We're trying to give this audience the best time they ever had. So we can let things fall apart a little bit. We can let things go off the rails and bring them along with us for the ride. But and in so doing, we'll be able to give them the most fun that they ever had. The second thing, doesn't take as long to explain, but the second thing is a lot of young performers will spend a lot of time trying to be interesting on stage. And that is a recipe for burnout. It's a recipe for, because you get stronger, and you stop sweating as much, and you stop being as nervous. And so all of a sudden you're going, wait a second, I need to work. I'm not sweating as much as I used to. I'm not as sore the next day as I used to be. Well, I must not be working hard enough. I have to do more. I have to do more. I have to do more. And what that does is they're trying to be interesting on stage and put on a show for the audience that is interesting. Mm-hmm. I had a mentor years ago say to me, Rob, you're very interesting on stage. Why don't you try being interested? And as soon as I flipped that switch, as soon as I changed that mentality of every time I step on stage, my job is not to be interesting. There's enough interesting going on all around us. We've got, buckets of chicken being thrown all around the dining area. We've got a banjo player. Who else? What other show has a live banjo player? We've got a banjo player. We got a piano player, world-class ragtime piano player sitting there. We've got, all this singing and dancing and costumes and comedy and crazy props and all this stuff. All of that is interesting in and of itself. My responsibility is to be interested in it and to point the audience in the direction of paying attention to the things that are most interesting. Thus, as long as you're interested, as long as you stay in that space of going, I am interested in what my fellow performers are doing. I'm interested in what the audience is giving us as far as their energy goes. I'm interested in all those things, then it makes it really easy to keep the show fresh. So those are the two things.
Well, I think there's something else that Hoop-Dee-Doo has that for the most part, I don't think maybe any other show has in Walt Disney World, which is a sense of legacy, right? When you meet the performers that help sort of lay the foundation for these roles, and you have to carry that responsibility on, not just for the performers and the people that you're working around, but for every single guest that is watching you for the first time or the 50th time, because you know you have repeat offenders, repeat guests who love to come in because the show is so special to them, because I think they sort of form a relationship with you, right? The same way I think you form a relationship with the audience every single night.
100%. I mean, I get people on a regular basis. I'll be walking through the parks, or I'll be just somewhere out and about in Orlando, and somebody will come up to us and say, "Hey, we're fans of Hoop. We're fans of Hoop-Dee-Doo," and and they know that I don't necessarily know them, but they stared at me for an hour and a half one night, and
they know you.
So, and so they got to know me. They got to know Six Bits, which honestly is a little bit of an extension of me. But yeah, they do that. What you're talking about legacy, and I think I'm going quickly through my Rolodex of live stage shows at Walt Disney World, and I believe Hoop-Dee-Doo is the only one that is truly a live. And when I say live, we're in charge of the timing of everything else. Has kind of a pre-recorded track, if not a pre-recorded underscore that is keeping everything moving at a certain time at a certain pace, and it's gonna when you press play on the show, it is going to finish 22 minutes later, 25 minutes later, 18 minutes later.
You're calling your own show, right? You're sort of calling your own show.
Exactly. We are doing it. We're building an ebb and flow with the audience and going, oh, you like this kind of joke? Okay. Everything that's not that, we're going to skip over and fly through really fast. Everything that is that, we're going to spend some time on that. And we're going to let the audience, and again, it's doing this show for this audience. The only other, and I would bring this up, there's two shows that I would point to at Walt Disney World that also have a legacy, and they're atmosphere shows though. And it's the Voices of Liberty and it's the Dapper Dans. And I think very similarly, because they are absolutely live, and they get to choose how they're going to do their show. Dapper Dans, they walk out, and there's a structure to the show. I also sing with the Dapper Dans. I sing lead with them. And there's a structure to the show. There's an expectation of how the show is going to go. And at the same time, when you see the Dapper Dans, the jokes are going to be different. The song order is going to be different. The song selection is going to be different. The interaction with the audience is going to be different. Same with Voices of Liberty. They get to choose, they've got about 80 songs in their repertoire. And you're going to hear 4 or 5 of those in the next 12 to 15 minutes, waiting for the American Adventure to begin. And so I think people go back to those again and again because they get to know the individuals that are in those shows. They also, there is a legacy of going, it's up to us to make this show great. It's up to us, the cast members that are in the show. It's up to us to make it great and make it consistently great every time. Because if we don't, we can't point to, well, the track was weird. We can't point to, well, this automation didn't happen. No, it's us. And so there is a responsibility with those types of shows that are truly live that I think audiences latch onto, and they go, "Oh my goodness, let's go to Hoop-Dee-Doo again," because you never know what's going to go wrong. You never know what's going to be different every show. Let's go. Oh, let's stop for the Dapper Dans. Let's stop for a song or two. Let's get there early for the American Adventure and see Voices of Liberty. Listen to Voices of Liberty because we're going to hear something we've never heard before. But it is maintained and built and honored by the cast that's in place. Can you tell I'm a little bit passionate about this?
No, and I love it, man. I love it. I can see it, and I know you who's listening can hear it in your voice too. And I agree, but again, there's something Hoop-Dee-Doo. You have to work to get to, right? You have to pay for a ticket. You got to take that bus.
It is work,
right? You have to work to get there. Like you got to really want to see the Hoop-Dee-Doo. And look, I've been so many times because I am drawn to the fried chicken. No, I am drawn to the fact that I know what the show is going to be, but I know it's going to be different. And one of the things that amazes me every time, and it's a testament to you and the other performers and the crew that puts it all together, is this on-the-spot creation of content. Like when you're sitting there and you're sort of just randomly going through the audience, the people who are in that audience are not planned. You don't know if the guy is going to be like, I'm from Saskatoon. You're like, oi, I got to figure out a rhyme to Saskatoon and do it like right here. It's fascinating to watch, the wheel spinning so quickly and the brilliance and the humor that comes out of these performers that clearly love the people who are in the audience and they love what they're doing.
It's you're correct 100%. We love when the audience is an active participant with us. That makes, to a degree, that makes the job fun and easy and different for us, And so as soon as the audience, now, listeners, you don't need to take that necessarily as marching orders, that every time that you go to the WDW review, you need to be shouting things at the stage throughout the entirety of the show. But at the same time, when something happens and we all were witness to it, an interesting story of an engagement, when we're doing birthdays and anniversaries, and we'll say, oh, these two just got engaged, let's hear the story. And there's, a fun detail about that couple, and we're able to then reference that later on in the show and bring that back and just remind the audience of going, this is live theater, and also we're doing it just for you. And we were all there. We were all witness to this funny thing that happened about 20 minutes ago. And here we are bringing it back up again. And it's only going to work in this show.
So you have performed in all of these different roles. And I want to talk about some of the things you do outside of Disney too, but anything else? So currently you're still friends with some of these same performers, like my
main. Yeah. So as my wife and I were just in New Orleans, and we had been in New Orleans pre-pandemic, and we went back and visited again, and we noticed, we're like, oh my goodness, it would appear they are rebuilding their musician community. They are rebuilding their musician community and rebuilding these venues and places for people to go and hear live music again there in New Orleans. And we love New Orleans for all of that. But it was a reminder of going, at Walt Disney World, we are rebuilding. Mm-hmm. And we are rebuilding the number of performers. We are rebuilding the stages that they perform at. And so along those lines, there's also, I know that the company has been actively looking to, as best as possible, bring back as many performers as they can, as quickly as they can. And I think that they're actively still doing that and looking for ways of, bringing things back from that were pre-pandemic and the before times, bringing those things back in some way, shape, or form, but certainly bringing those performers back. And so everything that I used to do, so I was in, Turtle Talk with Crush and Finding Nemo, the musical, and Royal Majesty Makers and Dapper Dans and the WDW Review. Those were kind of my rotation of shows in the before times. And now that I'm back, I came back with the WDW Review, got brushed up at Dapper Dans. But truly, my hope, I don't necessarily want to get back up right away with all of those other shows, because I want my friends to come back to work. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of performers, a lot of my friends that are kind of, piecemealing and subbing here and there for different things all around Central Florida. And I want them to be able to come back and have a regular place. And so anyway, so my mainstays right now are the WDW Review and Dapper Dans as well. And so, back doing those things.
So when the pandemic hits and the world shuts down and live theater shuts down, again, it takes a very long time for that to start ramping up. I remember when WDW opened up again, and what a beautiful and special and very emotional time it was. But I do feel, and I think you did as well, that sometimes through adversity, there's opportunity. And 100%. During COVID, you took what you've learned, your experience and your expertise and everything that you have led and created and performed, and built something out of it in that effort to help other people as well. Talk to me a little bit about what Blue Trumpet Creative is.
Thank you so much for asking. Yeah. So, like so many people, there was this thing with flu-like symptoms that was going around. And so I thought, I was sent home from work one day and I thought that I had, the next 2 weeks off. And so I kind of put out there into the world because it was just this weird in-between time of like, are we going to work? Are we not going to work? Schools were still in session, but also maybe not in the same way. And so I put a call out because everybody was doing a lot of my friends who were, high school theater teachers and college theater professors. And they were needing to kind of take all of their lesson plans, turn them sideways, because now we're needing to do all of this virtually online. And so I asked the question, just basically putting it out there into the world on the socials. I said, hey, I have some extra time. If you, to my teacher friends, if you need somebody to kind of come in and help kind of do some teaching and some master classes or some, just some Q&A of show business and what it's like to make it in this world as a performer, then happy to do that. And so I had some people come along and they said, actually, we have a budget for this, so we can pay you for it, which I was very appreciative and thankful for. And slowly over time, the idea of, hey, what are you working on? How can I help? What are you working on? How can I help? And I just kept, because I was bored, I was just sitting at home doing my own thing. I was bored. And so I was looking for things to do, looking for projects, and people started saying, oh, here's what I'm working on and here's how you can help. And so I realized I need to be fiduciarily responsible for some of those opportunities. And so in October of 2020, I started the company Blue Trumpet Creative. And Blue Trumpet Creative exists. It is coaching, consulting, and creative development. And the coaching part is helping anybody who is stepping on any kind of stage to remove the anxiety, remove the nervousness, and replace it with excitement and joy. And knowing that it is stepping on stage is an opportunity. It can be a joy. It can be a fun thing. And Blue Trumpet Creative can help you, can coach you, whether it's an audition, a presentation that you're giving at work, or, you're pitching a new idea, or you're just going to, hey, I want to do a toast at my daughter's wedding. We can help to remove that anxiety and get you to a place of preparedness that makes it, instead of being nervous, now I'm excited. So that's the coaching part. The consulting part is working with teams. I'm a big fan, knowing what I've learned from the Walt Disney Company and other great companies that I've worked with. But also I'm just a huge fan of the health, emotional health, the team health, the inner workings, the good health of companies, of what is going on behind the scenes, and making sure that they have everything that they need for them to work well together behind the scenes, so that what they are giving to their customers, what they're giving to their audience, what they are giving on their platform is the best that it can be, because what's going on behind the scenes is healthy and good and strong. And so I love working with teams. And the way I kind of talk about it is, helping them find the leadership to lead their creative, but also finding the creativity to be able to lead their leadership and make their leadership happen as a team. And so that's what the consulting piece is working with teams to make sure that they are operating at their optimal best. And then creative development is just whatever I want to do. It's just whatever is left. I got a call a couple summers ago, last summer, to a friend was saying, hey, there's this girl I've been dating and I really like her. She's very talented. And I am not necessarily talented the way that she's talented, but I want to ask her this question and I want to make sure that it meets the standard of who she is. And will you help me create a proposal that is fitting to who she is? And I said, oh my God, absolutely. And so we created it was a little bit of a kind of a flash mob where they happened upon some street performers that were playing their favorite song. So of course, as they're playing their favorite song, of course we're going to stop and listen to it. It was a guitar and a harmonica player. and they're playing this song. It was Moon River. And what they didn't realize while they were listening is that all of our friends from the Voices of Liberty were gathering behind them. And so when the musicians stopped playing, now there was about 40 singers behind them that picked up and gave lyrics to in their 8-part harmony to Moon River. At which point, then once that was done, the guitar picked back up, and it was just the two of them, the couple. Then and the guy got to just lean over and have just a conversation between the two of them. And he got down on one knee and asked the question, and she cried and said yes, and he stood up and he said she said yes, which was their cue to kick back into the key change of Moon River. At which point, when that was done, streamers shot off, and and all their friends and family came running in from around the corners, and it was just a great time. Anyway, that kind of stuff is what I really enjoy doing with Blue Trumpet Creative.
Well, on behalf of anybody who's ever thought about getting engaged, I want to thank you for ruining it for everybody else. Like, the one knee thing isn't going to cut it anymore for anybody who's listening, because now you set the expectation level.
I will send you a link to, we had a video crew there also that was hidden in the bushes. Yeah. And so they were hidden in the bushes, not to be seen. We had a video crew, and I'll send you a link to the YouTube clip, and you can,
I'll definitely
share it with everybody.
Yeah. But what I dig about and part of the reason why I wanted to mention Blue Trumpet is because I think, I talk about sort of, we're all being in the relationship business. And I think to a certain degree, everything that we do, right, is sort of an audition for something or somebody. So having that sense of performative, being performative in the things that we do is really important. I'm sure there's a way people can apply it to what they do. And clearly, you must never like to sleep, which is part of the reason why I dig you, because you also do one of those things called a podcast as well.
I do. Yes. Yeah. I have a couple of podcasts.
I looked at your site. You have like 17 podcasts, I think, going at once.
Ish. Yeah. So the main podcast that I'm working on now, I do a podcast with my sister called Let's Talk Soon. And on that, our structure, again, my sister being an author and a published writer, she and I, but also then having the history and relationship that brothers and sisters have. She's a writer. I'm an actor and director. And so we talk about the things that we are reading about, writing about, thinking about, and speaking up about. And then there's a podcast that I do called the Leading Creative Podcast. And it's all of the lessons that I have learned. It's kind of a solo podcast. Sometimes I'll do interviews with other leaders of creative. But it's all the things that I have learned about the principles of leading creative and leading creatives. And that intersection of leadership and creativity. You can have all of the great ideas in the world, but if you don't have the ability to execute on those ideas and lead others in making those ideas happen, then what good is that creativity? Meanwhile, you can have been to all the leadership conferences, read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, have all these leadership principles in your head. But if you don't have anything new to say, anything new to add to the conversation, anything new to bring to the world, then what good is that leadership? So it's that intersection of leadership and creativity that the Leading Creative Podcast is all about.
Awesome. I will obviously link to your 312 different ventures and sites and socials that you have for all that you do. Because in addition to the titles that I introduced you with, I think juggler is also one of them too, because you're wonderfully juggling a lot. And I think more importantly, Rob, you are sharing your gift of your talent and your expertise and with so many people in a way, and it's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on. You just put positive stuff out there in the world, man. You make people happy. You make people laugh. You give people memories that will last them a lifetime. And when I say, and I don't, when I say, I think you are the type of performer and cast member that Walt would be proud of, right? Because that's what he wanted the cast to be. I mean that sincerely.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, Rob Lott, thank you once again for coming on. All right, one last question, because I would be remiss if I didn't ask it from you. If somebody was like, Mom, Dad, I want to be him. I want to do what he does. I want to be the puppet guy, the performer guy. I want to go work at Disney. I know every role and every person is different, but if you had to give somebody one bit of advice, whether it is a little kid or the person that's been stuck in that career and like, I want to get out of this, I want to do something else, what's the bit of advice you'd give to them?
Say yes to every opportunity that comes your way. Say yes and pursue every opportunity. I was told when I first started at Walt Disney World, somebody said, Rob, I can tell you are ambitious. You want to do more things, bigger and better things. And so make sure that you set yourself a limit of working at Walt Disney World because you want to do other things outside of here. And so I set myself a limit of 5 years of working at Walt Disney World. But it had a little caveat. It said 5 years as long as I'm doing, but if I'm doing something new and interesting, then that 5-year thing starts all over again. And so along those lines, what I was told was say yes to everything for the first 5 years. And after that, you'll be able to pick and choose. And so for anybody who's wanting to get into this industry, get into in Walt Disney World or any of the other parks or anywhere. There's so many opportunities all around the country to perform. It's best to be in proximity to those locations. But at the same time, the world is getting smaller and smaller, and so a lot of performing can happen. Stages are all over the place everywhere, and so you can find a place to perform. But say yes to every opportunity that you possibly can. Get all the experience that you possibly can. Be kind. And the longevity in this industry is based on your kindness. You can be the most talented person in the world. You're not going to work very long if you are not kind. And so, be talented, be in the right place at the right time with the right talent. But once you get there, and once you get the job, be kind and just say yes to every opportunity. Get as much experience as you can.
I love that, man. It is beautiful and it's perfect. And while we were talking, I'm like, you know what? I think we need to do this again. I think we did a WDW Radio night at the Hoop-de-Doo the night before one of our group cruises. I think we need to do it again. Forget about just the cruise. Just sort of get a bunch of people together on the floor of Hoop-de-Doo and come out and see you and the rest of the cast and the crew. Rob Lott, thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate you and your time today.
Thank you. It's been a blast. Thank you.
It's time for our Walt Disney World Trivia Question of the Week, where I invite you to test your knowledge of Walt Disney World's history or see how well you pay attention to the details in what you see, hear, or remember. And if you think you know the answer, you can enter for a chance to win a Disney Prize package. And this week's trivia contest is once again brought to you by you. Because by being a member of the WDW Radio Nation, you help bring every episode of the show to life. All the live broadcasts, the contests, and giveaways, they're all thanks to and by, for, with, and about you. And you can help the show for as little as $1 per month and get exclusive rewards every month like scavenger hunts, trivia quests, participate in our group video calls, get access to our private Facebook group, their shirts, stickers, monthly care packages from the parks, and other opportunities exclusive to the WDW Radio Nation. I appreciate and am grateful for your love, support, and your friendship and your help, and I love being able to give back to you each and every month and say thank you. And of course, don't forget that a portion of your contribution goes to our Dream Team project to help children with life-threatening illnesses through the Make-A-Wish Foundation of America. I want to quickly thank some new and longtime members of the Nation family, including Thomas Freed, Robin Norell, Michael Kell, Zach Brown, Ray Keating, Molly Schultz, and Danielle Ballard. If you'd like to join them, be part of the Nation family, and help the show, you can visit wdwradio.com/support. Now, before we get to this week's question, we're going to go back to last week's and select our winner. So last week for our trivia contest, I was thinking about food. Who am I kidding? I'm always thinking about food. But the question last week was to tell me, Chef Mickey's, which is now located obviously in Disney's Contemporary Resort, was originally located in what other location? First, thanks to so many of you entered, got this one correct, and some of you shared memories and even photos of your time at Chef Mickey's when it was located at the Disney Village Marketplace, which now you know as Disney Springs. It opened there in July of 1990. It was originally the Village Restaurant and then closed September 30th, 1995. And then after extensive remodeling, reopened in 1996 as the Rainforest Cafe. And the current Chef Mickey's that we know and love over at Disney's Contemporary Resort opened on December 22nd, 1995. Anyway, I took all the correct entries, randomly selected one, and last week you were playing for a WDW Radio mug, a pin, and a mystery prize. And last week's winner, randomly selected, is Kristen Dean. So Kristen, congratulations. I'll get your prize package out to you right away. If you played last week and didn't win, that's okay, because here's your next chance to enter in this week's Walt Disney World Trivia Challenge. This week, we're going to go back in time once again. Surprisingly, maybe thankfully, it's not about food, but more about a who and a where. Because Bird and Tiger, that were their names, were once the hosts of what show in Walt Disney World? What show in Walt Disney World had hosts named Bird and Tiger? You have until Sunday, August 6th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern to go to WDWRadio.com, click on this week's podcast. And this week, you're not playing for a mug, you're not playing for a pin, but because this one is a little bit tricky, you're going to play for a prize package that includes mystery prizes from my trip to Disneyland Paris. So good luck, which I don't know how to say in French, and have fun. That's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you again for taking the time to tune in this and every week. Please come be part of the community and conversation over in the WDW Radio Clubhouse. It's fun, it's free, it's family friendly, and a great place not just to talk about anything in the Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars universe, but to make and meet some wonderful friends as well. You can also connect with me on social. I am at Lou Mongello on Instagram, Threads, Twitter, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And if you have a question you'd like me to answer on the show, you can email me, lou@wdwradio.com. Or if you want to call in with a comment about this or any of the past shows, or a question, or just say hello while you're in the parks, you can call the voicemail at 407-900-9391. That's 407-900-WDW1. And as much as I love connecting with you online, nothing beats a handshake and a hug. So please check out our events page at wdwradio.com/events for information about our next Meet of the Month in Walt Disney World. It's going to be Saturday, August 19th. Check the page for details, time, and location. You can also find out about other events in Walt Disney World, on land, at sea, and we still do have availability for our WDW Radio Nat Geo Danube River Cruise to the Christmas markets this December 9th through the 16th. You can go directly to www.radio.com/NatGeo23 for more information. Please also check out LouMongello.com. In addition to everything I do here at WDW Radio, I'm also a keynote speaker, a coach, and a creator on a mission to share the magic of Disney and help entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and business owners launch, grow, and monetize their brand and business through one-on-one coaching, my weekly mastermind group, speaking, and events, including my 50-person Momentum Weekend Workshop in Walt Disney World this September 29th. There are now currently only 6 seats available, but you can still take advantage of our $100 off discount by using code UNLOCK100. It is a 3-day, one-room, single-track workshop where you learn practical and tactical lessons and strategies in interactive workshops, how to apply them to your business and your life through inspiration, education, impact, and community. To learn more and secure your seat, you can visit LouMongello.com/momentum. And whether you're coming to Momentum, which, by the way, is in Walt Disney World, and it's during Food and Wine Festival, there's always a method to my madness. You can go and visit our friends over at mousefantravel.com. They'll get you not just to Momentum or to Walt Disney World or Disney Cruise Line or anywhere in this big, blue, beautiful world of ours. They will not only ensure that you have the best possible experience, but share years of experience and expertise, and it all comes at no cost to you. Again, you can visit them over at mousefantravel.com. And finally, my friend, and you are my friend, whether we have met yet or not, All I ask is that if you like the show, please help spread the word. Tell a friend. If you can, leave a rating review. Screenshot you listening to this or your favorite episode on your phone and share it on social. Tag me at Lou Mangello so I see it, can comment, reshare it, and follow you as well. If you can leave a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen, it would be very much appreciated. And finally, and most importantly, I want to say a very heartfelt thank you to you and ask you and remind you to always choose the good and let your choices be guided by kindness and empathy and compassion, and be a force, a gentle force for positive change, and then watch how your actions create ripples of goodness, not just for the people that you touch, but for those that they impact, and so on and so on. Because I promise you, it'll not only make you feel better, but them feel better. And your one small act of choosing and being the good can make a much larger difference than you might expect. I love you. I appreciate you. I hope that this is your best week ever. I hope to see you this and every Wednesday on the live show at WDW Radio Live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So until next time, see ya.
What's up, Lou? We're driving back from Disney. Had a great trip. Man, tried out that Nomad Lounge. We cannot believe those wings. Appreciate the tips. Keep them coming, boss. Roll on. Have a magical day.
Hey, Lou. It is Mark Steese. Hey, I have been following you since the first episode of Mouse Tunes, and now I'm following you on Threads. So one of these days we've got to meet up in person. But I wanted to call about the chilling, thrilling sounds of the Haunted House album, the vinyl. I had no recollection of this being a Disney product. I wore that vinyl out as a kid every Halloween, decorating my front yard, you know, with the fake ghosts and the black light and everything. And it was just such a thrill to hear there was a Disney connection with that. So thanks for sharing that on the most recent episode. And just keep up your encouraging work. Love hearing you every week. Thanks. Bye.
Hello, Lou and the team. This is Janet from Tuscaloosa, Alabama here. Thank you for your amazing podcast. I absolutely love listening to your conversations about Disneyland Paris. We didn't move to the United States until 1996, so we were lucky enough to visit Euro Disney several times while we still lived in England, including the very first week it opened. You were talking about the Hyperion, and we were able to see the show there, and it was Beauty and the Beast. My daughter Samantha, she was about 7 at the time, was dressed in her belle dress, ready for the evening, and at the end of the show, thoroughly enchanted, she was waving feverishly to the cast as they took their bow, and Belle blew her a kiss. It was a truly magical moment that I actually caught on camera. Her love of Disney has continued to grow through the years, and she now has a business selling Disney-inspired running skirts. They're the ones with the big bows on the back. Dotty for running, I don't know if you're allowed to say that. Well, on weekdays, it was often very quiet in the park, and one evening my husband went to get the last ride on Space Mountain, which he still says is the best Space Mountain, and the children and I caught one of the last boats from Small, Small World. Well, at the end of the ride, after you got off the boat, there was a large room with a lovely town of beautiful little buildings, and if you peeped into the windows, there were cartoons of children chatting on the phone in different languages or singing. Well, as we had the place to ourselves, Samantha Harrison and I looked in every single window, but when we came out, however, Disneyland was closed. The Dumbos were all covered up. It was absolutely deserted, not a cast member in sight. Well, we made our way towards the exit where we could see the backs of the cast members linking arms, guarding the archway through the castle. So imagine their surprise when we came up behind them and tapped them on the shoulder. And there was my husband in front of the castle explaining very sweetly in his best French, I told you they were in there. No cell phones in those days. And one last thing, whenever I go on vacation, I always send myself a postcard. And on our first visit to Euro Disney, there were not yet any postcards with photographs on, just our artist impressions. So my postcard has the painting of the vision of the most beautiful castle, complete with the square-topped trees. Thank you again so much. Bye-bye.